trading checklist. Okay, I pretty much just finished with the trade earlier. Okay, that is it based on the euro. Okay, then let's begin. Alright, just 1 second. Okay. Alright, looking at macro fundamental of things, based here in the US, we're looking at the actual is actually greater than the previous, which actually led the market to, it was hovering earlier and then out of nowhere basically tanked. There's something happened basically through there. So it was hovering around the 14,000, it was positive at the very beginning. Based on that report, there's nothing really after that. Say in 5 hours time we have the FDI report in China, but they're all pretty much low, and then Monday being a public holiday, so you're just going to be careful based on Tuesday. Technically speaking, through seasonals after a holiday, they normally basically drop. Okay, the other part here, 2 GBP retail sales minus 0.6. We'll look into that as well and what's currently happening based on that. So there's the consumer sentiment. There's a 76.3. Right, other than that, there's no more other news. Okay, let's go through, look at the dollar index. Okay, so the dollar index just hovering around to that 80.60. Next price to beat is that high point right there at 80.86. Okay, the trend did break. Based on the daily chart, and the next price to beat is here, and if it breaks through that 80.86, then it's going to go beyond that. And looking on the bigger time frame of the weekly, okay, it's still pretty much a higher low from this point. Also lower highs as well on this point, and we can actually change that now. Let me delete it. Let me just put a new trend on the bigger one. So, technically speaking, based on the higher time frame and the primary downtrend has been broken. Okay, so from what we can see, well, BP primary pretty much if it's from June of 2012, but if we're going to look into things and that is not the primary is all the way go through the monthly on a bigger time frame, that will be the primary. So there's currently certain things that it has to do first. Okay, so heading back on the daily chart, the odds and probability that the price will continue is highly probable. Even looking at the weekly chart alone, bulls are currently in control, so to go through around the 80 is more than likely, but then again, anything can happen as long as if the price doesn't want to supersede that last high at 80.60 on a smaller time frame, then it will retrace to the downside. But overall, it's currently bullish. So from a higher high perspective, higher low will be the next one before a new higher high. Okay, next, you want to look into the net day there too, based on the Dow later. Okay. SP 500, so and you can see here a much better indication. The odds and probability S&P is going to drop, the market is going to drop, is highly probable. Now we have a new higher high, that 1521. Did it break on that last high based on the weekly? Can't really see on the weekly. Let's go through on the monthly. Right. What's that high? 1526. No. 1510. Definitely they did break that. 1537, 1554. But yeah, 1526, 1521. So it was off by 5 points. However, in the bigger time frame, well, the monthly it's not over yet. But based on the weekly, now we have a gravestone doji. So it's a much clearer indication for me, and I'll be shorting the marketplace. The question here is up to where if this one chooses pretty much to drop. Okay, let me have a quick look here. No, 1469, which is a really good level of demand, and it's quite a big. The S&P is actually, yeah, it's quite pretty big. So odds and probability that the market will drop is highly probable. So if you look at all the bars, it's running out of steam. This one showed a much better one. But obviously, yeah, since also in an uptrend, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, even if they continue to that to go to the upside, but if it does want to supersede at 1521, then yeah, this will fail all the way down to 1469. 1489 will be the first one because there's also those lows, the level demand in the shorter term period, but on the bigger area from October, then we're going to see a minor correction before a continuation to the upside. Okay, so let's move to the next. Actually, so I'll leave that. Click on Net Dania quickly. Okay, while that's loading, go through as well through Bloomberg, see what happened pretty much across the globe, especially in Europe. I believe it's a mixed bag. Yeah. So Euro 50, the down 0.76, the FTSE was the only one that's pretty much on positive territory, 0.01. The DAX is close to 0.5%. And that's pretty much that happened in the very last minute. Right, let's look into Dow as well. Looking at a bigger perspective. Sweet. Okay, nice clear one. We have a new higher high. We have a clear M2. So no doubt about that. Gonna be shorting this. Hey, and in the Dow on the bigger one with the current high right there, all the way to 13.6 is still my good level of demand. So 9876, that's about a 328 point to the downside. That's approximately close to 4%. Yeah, as a form of a correction. So from higher high stabilization, we have a clear confirming evidence between the bulls and the bears fighting. We have a certain element right there that may continue to drop further. Risk is very small. High is 1438, and it created a new high, broke out on the 1423. If we look into the past, 1423, 1421. This high right there. So, oops. Click 1421.95, and then the high of today is 1438. So create a new higher high. The next price to beat is at 14.198, as we've been discussing for the past few months. But we are in a level of supply at the moment. I know the bulls are just way too strong on a bigger time frame, but we're going to see some form of minor correction. Can it drop all the way to 13.6? It could. These are also the levels. 13.660 will be that area. Other than that, around these levels, there is nothing supporting it. Shorter term time frame, 13.852 will be the support. If it breaks through there, then these are the big ones on the levels of demand. Okay, so I'm bearish basically with the markets. So let's go through then on the next step. Right, then let's go through and look at some trades. Any questions in terms of the macro fundamentals of things before I move on? None. Okay.
No questions, really.
Awesome. All right, let's scan through here. So I believe this one's already finished, in my opinion, in terms of the trend. However, anything can happen too. You can come back at 134. Now there's still a G20 meeting. I believe they're going to go through this weekend. And if this one doesn't want to drop, creating that stabilization, then it will go through here on this point. Just happy pretty much with the trade. Didn't want to go through my target at 133, so but at 133.20 just basically hopped out. So looking at a bigger time frame, and we can see here, yes, it's a gravestone doji, but it's an uptrend. The probability of actually this one going to the upside is highly more probable than going to the downside. If it does, then next price is going to be about that 131.35, even at 130.42. Right, M2, we don't have anything, but there might be a potential reversal, but if it does, then it can come back up around these levels until it decides to break the 137. So we can't beat it in terms of the trend. It's still pretty much in the overbought. There's some more room, but once again with the caveat that it has to break that trend. Right, M3, what do we have on M3? None, touching just the 8 of the 10. After there's a big spike with great momentum, it has to fill back in all the way down to 8 of the 10, so there's a nice clear rebound opportunity to basically come back in. So I put this pretty much on my checklist, the euro dollar, then to go back to the long side. Okay, and looking at the dollar index, it may come back down just a little bit in terms of the correct itself. And now everything is out of whack at the moment in terms of the markets. And now if I'm bearish with the market, and now the major currency is gonna go up, yeah, there's a little bit iffy right there in the marketplace at the moment. Okay, looking at the daily chart, there is none. So when it didn't want to continue above that 8 and the 10 within the trend, hence that's why with the shorting opportunity. So there might be a reversal happening, because here's a really good level of demand around that point. Right, dollar yen. So for people who are in class last night, actually we had a really good discussion. I had to push through the advanced traders a little bit more to the next level. And based on analysis and things like that. So I believe one of you, or if you entered there, then you're currently pretty much up based on from the time that we were discussing it. So probably made about close to 100 pips overnight. All right, looking at the dollar yen based on the weekly, then hence why I wasn't too convinced that the yen can drop yet, is because of the higher highs. The bulls are still too powerful, still too strong, and you have this good level of supply. This one is just mainly equilibrium between the demand and supply, but based on the bigger time frame, that 95 is really strong. So there's no sign of weakness on the monthly unless it decides to come back down by the end of the month. We still have 2 more weeks, but 10 trading business days. Well, February 28th, so less than pretty much 10 trading business days in order for this to decide whether if the price can go to all the way to 95 or back down through here. But at the moment the price is just way too strong. We can't go against it. Hence the daily probability of much of this heading towards the upside is much better. Now the plan, what we spoke about last night, is that if the price doesn't want to supersede this areas or the major ones, especially that high 94.47, then we're going to short this like there's no tomorrow. But other than that, for now, there's no way that this will come back down as yet. So we need more evidence. We need to wait until the price reaches a much better supply area, close it at 95. Right, M2. Despite being overbought, there is nothing dictating. There's no setups. M2 on a daily, there's nothing either. M3 on the weekly, great big gaps. So when the time comes, then we can make at least close to 300, 400 pips to the downside, but there is nothing yet dictating that it can come back down. Daily, there was if the closing price closes below through here, then the probability that is a much better price of selling is highly probable based on M3, but other than that, there's none. Okay, pound against the dollar. Pound against the dollar, the month is just way too strong, and I'm still waiting for that 153, so around 200 more pips. But from 162, 163 to where the price is at the moment, 800 pips to the downside in 2 months is actually very strong. But we can see here, he's just hovering on a sideways movement. So once get the level of demand, gotta go long again. Weekly, it's so weak that we need a good point of stabilization. So to go long right now could be an opportunity, but there is not. It's not a really good idea, really, because of the momentum. Now, on the daily chart, we see have a doji trying to stabilize itself. There is a can basically trade this for a very short term to go to about 156, about 100 pips to the upside as a form of consolidation, but there's still more here. Here's a powerful, it's a really good demand, but the biggest demand level is around these levels. In my opinion, if I give it a rating out of 10, it's pretty much a 7.5 to probably 7.5. So I'm not convinced that this will go back up as yet, based on the bigger time frame. Now on M2, nothing. There could be a potential one based on what we're going to see on Sunday. Based on the doji, there is approximately trigger point around that 155.16, probably another 2 pips or something by next week. And if there is, and we can make money all the way to that 156.30, but approximately just 100 pips. Right, weekly, so far from the 8 to the 10, so once that stabilization happens, here's a great opportunity as well, but approximately 400 pips just to come back around the 50% level. So, but that's when the time comes though. So there's nothing on M3. Daily chart, there's none, so it's still pretty much below the 8 to 10. Dollar Swiss. Right, based on the weekly, clear breakout in the shorter term, secondary downtrend. So excuse me, my throat is a little bit ticklish. 61.8 will be the next one. It almost touched it, so there's a little bit more room around this point within the market. So similar to the dollar index, if it touches around here, then I'll be shorting this again. Now this week gave us some profits with the dollar against the Swiss. Then so we're just going to be patient right now. At the moment, it's in its critical state, whether it will continue or pretty much drop. So yes, this was a nice clear breakout in the form of a higher high, higher low, new higher high. Now we need to see much clearer. There's just a little bit more room within this level, 92.50, all the way to that supply there, about 93 if it chooses to. So there's some, can make another 70 pips, but other than that, that is it. M2, let's go through first on the weekly. Nothing on the weekly part of the 50%, but there is no setups. Daily, no setups, getting to the overbought. M3, based on the weekly, first time it ended up on above the 8 or the 10. So we'll see next week. If it chooses to, then we can go back in based on M3 and longer term. Daily chart, there's none. After that, another entry point you actually created through there too, right? So from that entry, 91.73, just pretty much a 50 pips. So it's not too bad based on that. Right, Euro Swiss. I know it's just hovering around at the moment, so within the trends, we'll just leave that because it's really doing nothing. Right, Aussie USD, man. Okay, so intention was perfect, was great. When it was just hovering in a smaller time frame around at 103.50 prior to going to bed, didn't like it because I'm currently waiting for that report. So I didn't feel comfortable, so I closed the position. It was still profitable, but now I went to the 50%, 103. So my target point at first at 102.50, and then basically at 102.50, and I closed it at 103. So from that perspective, still an awesome trade, still within the trend then. But on the weekly chart, here's a much better tool. So they're running out of steam at the moment. Still the same, I'm not convinced that they may push the price a little bit, is because there's not enough evidence of a good strong demand. Here's a much better one at 101.7 based in the past on a longer term. So we'll see. Based on the shorter term, currently from a higher high, higher low, my plan is that if it doesn't want to go beyond 102.29, if it's just going to hover here on Sunday, Monday, then I'm going long. Here wasn't a good idea. We had that, discussion that in class last Wednesday. So students were saying they're going to go long, but I said why? And it still doesn't have enough evidence that you will go and pursue further, and it begins with the trend. So hence the lesson for this week is that definitely the trend is your friend. You cannot go against the trend. Better scenario is that when the low doesn't want to supersede on that lower low, then that is a better price of buying, and the probability of you winning is highly probable because they're still around this room that they need to fill in all the way to February 24. As far as we're concerned, it can just hover in around this point, and it will decide by the end of the month to go to the upside. Alright, so for now, none. Okay, still bearish. M2, nothing, bearish. However, if that's the case, it's around here, oh my goodness, then we'll be shorting that again like there's no tomorrow. But other than that, nothing. M3, based on the weekly, none. Still below the 8 to the 10, but also there's a nice big gap between the current price and 8 to the 10. So if it chooses to, I actually would prefer the price to come down here to retest this lower shadow. That lower shadow has been tested. This upper shadows will be tested somewhere sometime in the future. So if I see a nice V formation on the low side, then buying. Then this means then that a good support area, nice demand around at 102.50. Right, M3 based on the daily, none. Is this a failure? No, not yet. We'll see on Monday. If it chooses to come back up, then this one is not a failure in terms of that entry or to the long side. But I believe they need to hover that. It's just too soon in order for the price to break the 8 to the 10, to be honest. Once they see a much clearer consolidation and the 8 to 10 is getting closer and nice breakout, and that's where we need to go in. Right, dollar CAD. Based on the weekly, very nice. The bulls are in control. At the moment, from the higher high, create a new higher low. Next level, create a new higher high. Next price to beat. Aside from that 101 is this highest right here. Okay, so it's approaching good supply zones. What are the odds? The odds that it could break it, it's highly probable. So similar to last night, if you guys were in class and you took action, great. If you didn't take any action, then you snooze, you lose, right? So we just stated why you're going to go short. In actual fact, you have to go long based on what we see. Awesome. And from that perspective, from 113, you guys should be up about 50 pips by now. Yes, definitely price bid is at 101. But if it breaks through there too, from the higher high, higher low, definitely here's a higher high, but this whole perspective is just mainly a correction from that momentum to the upside right there. Right, M2, nothing. Weekly chart. Getting to the overbought, so but there's nothing right there. And then on the daily, nothing. Okay, M3. Nice sitting on the floor, hence close to the rebound. And on the weekly chart, yeah, same. So with that, then rebounding to the upside. There is nothing, still a continuation of the trend. Right, Kiwi. Kiwi finally tanked. Yeah, unfortunately, Razor was sleeping on based on that. Right now, on the weekly chart, we have a higher high, higher low tested. So depending on what the price will do on the bigger time frame, we prefer some form of a doji or some sort. Now there's this empty space that they have to fill in again, but creating definitely a new higher high. Next price to beat is about 85.70 to beat August of 2011. And if this one will break, then all the way to that high 88.41, which I believe was the highest it's ever been. Right, and yeah. And so we create new higher highs, and when the time is ripe, higher low, higher high. Odds and probability to go to 88 by the end of the year is highly probable. That's if it chooses to. But if this trend will be broken, then no. Then it's going to fail back to 80. Okay, go back to the daily chart. So we have a higher highs, lower lows, bearish engulfing. Odds and probability that they may push the price further is to the downside is very, very strong. Okay, question here is where is the next correction. Well, already corrected itself. 50, 84.23, 20 odd something pips, almost guaranteed that you will make money through there. 83.96, 84, maybe in terms of probability is about 80%, 75 to 80%. But a much better deal if waiting for a correction, small correction on a smaller time frame. If it comes back 80, about 40 pips, or even if the high doesn't want to supersede that high, then we can enter. Alright, daily chart. Let's go through first actually the weekly. No setups and that clear divergence basically to the downside. So when the opportunity comes, when the time comes, they will fail more. Here is channeling pretty much in a uptrending market. So if we choose to, based on the trend, back to around the 83.50, 90 pips around that point. Right, let's go through again the 1 hour just briefly on where the price is at. Yeah, so currently in the way oversold. I'm gonna wait until it comes back up a little bit. Yeah, so I'm gonna hold that for now and just create a note. Okay, M3. M3, what do we have based on M3? Still pretty much within the criteria, nothing as yet dictating that this will drop. Daily chart, none. It is just doing its job just to come to back to the 8 of the 10, 84. Hence, around that 50%, but 20 odd something pips just to make money, right? Then it will choose to rebound. Alrighty, euro pound. What do we have based on the euro against the pound? Weekly, bullish, daily. From that break, higher highs, higher lows. Next one, higher high. Hence, euro to basically go long, right? If the price doesn't want to go through beyond here, then I'll be shorting this. So there's about approximately about 90 to about 100 pips. But if that price is going to create a new higher high, I'm also monitoring this actually. So nothing as yet. Weekly based on M2, none, but very bullish still. Daily, nothing. M3, still above the 8 of the 10. Based on the daily, what's happening on the weekly though? Nothing. So, but with the current closing price at the moment against that 84, 200 pips to the downside, man. So there's some opportunity there too when the time comes. But we can see here clearly higher high, higher low, higher high. Will it do really a higher high? We will see. Okay. Euro yen. Weekly. So these are all my current good potential trades are any major currencies are pretty much against the yen. Euro yen, I'm more prone to the upside, to be honest, than to the downside. You can see that very clearly. Unless this trend will be broken, then odds and probability to come down around at 120 is highly probable. Approximately about 400 pips to the downside. But from what we can see at the moment, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, oh, that's from what I can see anyway. So we have a lower low here perspective, but they push the price in terms of the closing. I prefer if the price will go above halfway point of this, to be honest. Now, can it come all the way to 125.96? Yes, about 100 pips to the upside, and that can happen pretty much all in one day. If the price doesn't want to go past the trend or even this high and that high, then I'm going to change my viewpoint next week to the sell side. But for now, from the higher highs, higher lows, the next one should be technically speaking a higher high. So there's opportunity between 100 pips all the way to about the 128, 300. So about 100 to 300 pips pretty much to the upside right there. Weekly, none. But in terms, it's way overbought. Daily chart, same. However, because of the volatility lately, hence it's almost on the oversold too. So the odds and probability that this will go to the upside is highly probable. The risk is pretty small. Obviously now with the euro being pretty volatile, if you can't handle the speed, please don't trade it, because the low price is 122.88 and then the current price is 124.82, close to 200 pips in terms of the risk, with a potential 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio. 1-to-1 around here, or less than actually 1-to-1, but it goes through on this point then close to 2-to-1. Right, M3, definitely there's a lot of room in order for this pair to drop. 500 pips, pretty much on average. Okay, now, yes, we have a lower lows. Now they have to retest these levels here first, and if the highs they want to supersede it, then we're going to go short. So far, not a good idea of shorting at a level of demand, to be honest. So we need to wait for that. Now we have a clear M2, sorry, method 3 selling point to the downside. We'll just wait basically for Monday, but if we're just really talking here just an M3 perspective, then shorting is, the signal is there, but in the level of demand it is not quite as yet. Okay. All right. Last but not actually two more. Now I'm liking the pound this piece as well. All right. Pound yen, awesome. Weekly. Let's go through first and weekly. See higher highs, higher lows. Still an uncertainty bar for me. They have to retest down to the downside. They have to retest here as well. Now going back to the daily chart, seeing it's in an uptrend, primary uptrend, nice and sweet. At one point in time, did break the level of demand. Boom, price came back up. 143, so like 200 pips pretty much in a few hours actually. See right there from this point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 hours made 200 pips. So that's one advantage actually. If you live in Australia, it's awesome based on the time. And around here, I couldn't open my eyes anymore, so I was like, I gotta go to bed. Yeah, that's a good one for day trading. Day trading, the pound and the euro is good for day trading, even actually also the US dollar against the yen. All right, so they're just setting at the moment, higher highs, higher lows, really good level of demand, hence that doji from what we see. So here's a really good demand level, 144, but 100 pips, but 200 pips in terms of the risk. The odds and probably it may go to 147, so about approximately 200, 350 pips to the upside is highly probable. So it's a good 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio. If the price doesn't want to go beyond these highs, then I'll be shorting this as well, like there's no tomorrow. So for now, within the trend, I like the pound against the yen, really strong based on the primary uptrend. M2, there is nothing. So if the price will finish like this, even better for me as a trader, because I needed to get that price above that 144.50. Right, daily. I'm sorry, let's go through the weekly briefly. Nothing. But we can't ignore being overbought. It's been overbought for a while anyway, since November. So just ignore that actually until there's a clear indication. It was also almost pretty nice as a form of M2, but we want the price to cross below here, so no go. Alrighty. Method 3 based on the daily. See here around approximately 146. in order for it to cross a little bit more, much better price of selling. But I actually want the price to go through here and a stronger one right there. Right, based on the weekly, there are different ball games, still above the 8 and the 10. Alright, two exotic pairs quickly. So we go through Japan against the Swiss. None too weak still. However, we have higher highs, higher lows based on the daily chart. A nice one too, because of the lows doesn't want to go through. So once this one clears out, back to 145, we can make another 200 pips, and a much better tool for price pattern traders, that if it breaks that 145, our target point is about that 147. So I'm just monitoring this at the moment. The risk is pretty small. Here's also a good one, but if the price can come back just a little bit around this point, then much better price of buying. And even on the weekly, so there's none way oversold right there. Daily, almost. We might hit the trigger in the next 20 minutes or so. If it chooses to go one above, or at least at 143.15, then gonna take this trade. So we got like that pound Swiss as well. M3 none, just way below the 8 or the 10. So there's also that opportunity to head back. Still nothing, so it's getting much closer. Alright. Last but not the least, let's go through Aussie Kiwi. I've been following this, so this might be a much better opportunity in terms of heading to the upside right there, because this one's way been battered by the Kiwi. Weekly is not good, right? We have in a demand though, good demand level around this point, but I want to see some form of a doji. Okay, now let's go through, look at M2s. There's a potential one, but at least it created a hammer. It's hammering this base, 120, 140. Now this is also a very volatile pair. At least in terms of the risk, is only 40-50 pips to the downside to have an opportunity to reverse to the upside. So there's a potential M2 by Sunday. In terms of M1 though, we have a nice one as a swing trade. Okay, M3, yes, if you choose to head back around at 120.75, yeah, 80-90 pips. Right, none. Okay, so in terms of trades, euro dollar is what I'm looking at based on what I can see at the moment daily. So now the price is just above through there. The risk 133, about a 60 outstanding pips, and then the other one is the pound against the yen. Pound against the yen 145.01, so which is actually not too bad in terms of that. It's just way too far. 142.90, 200 pips. All right, let's and on that daily, let's look on the weekly briefly. Euro, yen, pound, Swiss, right, let's think about this briefly in terms of price, in terms of probability, in terms of risk. Okay, low, 23.70 pips compared to 270. Sweet, then I will take the pound Swiss. I know there's a few good ones. 141. So new change. 141.82, 141.82, 143. Also 200 pips. Okay. One 133.07, 133.60. It's reaching through there. Doji weekly. Take the low, 132.68. So 100 pips. Okay, this is much better. So 100 pips compared to 200 pips. All right. $135. Okay. Funny. Okay. Yeah. So I entered basically now through that, and we have 10 minutes, but the currencies will be an hour and 10. Anything can happen through here. So I just bought pretty much just testing the waters about 1%. Know that about the 1 hour chart. Yeah, it's in a level of supply as well. Okay, so better price of buying will be that 133.53. They may come back on Monday, but who knows, depending on whatever news will happen over the weekend, we can see either a gap or a gap to the downside. Okay, all right, based on the daily. Alrighty, one, I'll just use this again. Let's see. April 15. Yes, that is who I am. Right. Yeah, it's still bullish short term. Alright, swing trade, yes, I realize, yes, what's the trend? Some demand, alright, going on. Daily in the market. One day 361, 133.59, 133, 69, 133, 69, stop, 132, 57, 132, 57, I put up 135 for now. So I took pretty much the low of that. There's also that low of this one. But if the low doesn't want, if the next low is going to sit here above this, then I'm going to increase my stop to the low of this one. Okay. Let's see what it shows. Day 2, 15, 13, and 1. And 35, insert. Okay, that is it. Any questions for me? In actual fact, there's also what's happening. Oh, interesting. So the trend came back up. All right, now that changes pretty much everything. See how price can do anything, right? So we have a nice volume to the upside. So smart. I reckon they just did some profit taking, and then when the bond market closed, so professionals know something. Okay, they started buying at the very last minute. Alrighty. So in other words, if I go through, look at this on the weekly chart, then no go. Not shorting. Hence why it's so important to look at the getting close to the price. At one point it was really nice. No, so similar higher high. This might just be a minor correction. Then next week maybe a very bullish week. So I believe they're going to want to push that all the way to the end of 198. And also below we have a higher low, higher highs, higher lows. Odds and probability this will continue is highly probable, which now makes sense in terms of why going long. So, my opinion, it doesn't matter if you buy the euro yen, the pound yen, dollar yen, euro dollar, even on the pound against the dollar. I think the odds and probability may continue is highly probable. Then even probably the odds against the dollar could be probable in terms of that. Then therefore, based on the dollar index, what we saw, despite on the weekly very bullish and on the shorter term perspective, stabilization, correction, then continuation, then odds of us winning a little bit higher is more than likely then. Cool. Okay, checked on that one. Any questions? Nope. Nothing. Nada. There's no questions for
No
those.
questions.
Yeah, great. It's great to see when there's a lot of people. So I hope you guys learned something for those who came in. And then for the guys last night, I know you guys made money if you hopped in, okay? Alrighty. Adios. You have a great weekend. Till next time, see you next week.